Hello. I'm a clown. I wore my finest dress clown outfit for you all. And when you see clowns or you think of clowns, what comes into your mind? Huh? Anybody scared of clowns out there? You might have reason to be. In this slide here, we've got fiction and nonfiction. At the top, we've got some fiction, Pennywise from Stephen King, It. And then on the bottom, you've got a serial killer, John Wayne Gacy. All right? And right in between, that's me. I was a clown with Ringling Bros, Barnum Bailey Circus. Now, clowns have power. In the bottom left, you can see that we can sell billions and billions of cheeseburgers, right? So I was a clown. I was frustrated. It was my senior year in college, and I dropped out to join the circus. Frustrated, but this pissed off a lot of people. And that's the role of the clown, to kind of subvert authority. So thousands and thousands of people auditioned for Ringling Brothers Clown College. 30 people got in, 10 people got a job. Lucky for me, I got a job. And I could not wait to get back to Cincinnati, to stick it to the man, to invite the dean, all the students, my parents to come to see the circus. But in 1997, Cincinnati was underwater. So my friends from Northern Kentucky, from Cincinnati, they couldn't come and see the show. But my buddy Harry and I, another guy from Cincinnati, we drove up from North Carolina ahead of time, and we were the only ones who had our costumes. The circus train could not be unloaded. It sat in town for a couple days and then headed on to Baltimore. But we took the show to 5 area Red Cross shelters in Kentucky and in Cincinnati. And this is where I first realized the power and the potential of the clown. Because first, some people thought this was a bad idea. Why should the clowns come to a Red Cross shelter? Well, these people were stuck in an auditorium or a gymnasium for 3 days with a little 6x12 duct tape square and 2 Red Cross mattresses. And they didn't have anything except maybe a box of pictures. So the clowns, we brought some distraction, we brought some joy, we took the kids away. And when you've lost everything, you're either going to be laughing or you're going to be crying. So why not be laughing? So a part of Ringling Brothers' corporate responsibility policy is in major markets, they have blind touch tours immediately following the show. So they hear the show and 15, 20 kids come down, and after the show they get to feel the skin of the elephant. They get to feel our wigs and our big clown shoes. And one of the jobs I had was to drive the clown car, 14 shows a week. And I loved to pack the blind kids in the clown car and drive around the arena as fast as we could. Now, was it wrong? A little bit, but as clowns, we can push it, okay? So here in Cincinnati, there's a place called Clovernook Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And every summer, we get to bring the circus to these kids. Now, they think the circus, I don't want to do the circus, and that's all right. Everybody sits in a circle, and we have this big ball that we push around. It's hard plastic, and we tell the kids, you feel that ball? You're going to walk on that ball. And they say, no, we can't walk on that ball. We're blind. And we say, well, hold on a second. Your listening skills are superior to mine. Your balance is extraordinary. Your courageousness is through the roof. So, yeah, let's do this. So we'll call this kid Billy, and we get Billy up on the ball, and Billy's like, I'm doing it. And all the blind kids are like, I want to do that. So my frustration with the circus, it led to some neat things, but I want to try and take you back to a time pre-frustration. Does anybody remember pre-frustration? Anybody? So for 40 weeks, you're floating around, and it's really nice. It's like, wow, this is cool. Your nourishment's taken care of, and then you're born. Okay? And then you lie there for like 3-4 months. And then one amazing day, you do this. And I guarantee you, your mom or your dad picks up the phone and they call someone and they say, Paul can roll over now. Paul can roll over. It's a big deal. And you're like, wow, I wondered what I was laying on. This is cool. Your whole world just doubled, right? And then one day, a few months later, you are able to do this. And a month or two later, you start to cause a little bit of trouble. Oh, this is right. And what happens is you grab onto something. This is maybe 10, 11 months. You're grabbing onto something, and then what's the very next thing that happens? Now, you don't say, oh, damn, I can't walk. You don't say that because you can't talk yet, right? But everywhere around you, people are like, wow, he's walking, he's going to walk. It's a big deal. And people are cheering you on. This is like the first performance. Everyone's like, yeah, in the audience, you take 2 steps, you take 3 steps, and it's a big deal. All right, so speaking of big deals, this is the Hamilton County Juvenile Detention Center, Hillcrest Training School, and it costs $60,000 a year to lock up these kids, okay? So we're looking for talent, and if you're good at stealing cars, you're perfect for the circus. You are focused and you are fearless, okay? And as a clown, I love to speak to power. I'm like, listen, we're going bankrupt. This is stupid. Why don't we take these young people, give them some job skills? And they kind of dared us to do this, okay? So you can see him if you look real close, but he's got a royal blue shirt, his arms out like this. That's my partner, Emmanuel Tawaya. Now, Emmanuel's from Ghana, and he is an amazing performer. He's like a triple threat, all right? So if we were doing a corporate team building or if we were doing a class right now, I would put you into 3 buckets. You're either clowns, jugglers, or acrobats, okay? Now, you're an acrobat if you spend more than 2 minutes on your hair or if you drive a nice car because you go through life doing backflips and you're an acrobat, all right? And if you make your bed, if your taxes are on time, if you like delete all the emails when you're done, you are a juggler, okay? Because there's a system to how you do things. And if you're obnoxious like me, or maybe real tall and skinny, or short, round, and funny, you are a clown because you go through life making fun of yourself or situations. But Emmanuel's the total package, all right? It's fantastic to have a partner who really is tremendous. So the first show we did, we didn't call it circus because these young people had never been to the circus. So we called it entertainment. And we didn't call it clowning because there's a lot of hang-up with clowns, but it's even more prominent in the African-American community because of minstrelsy and blackface. So we just called it entertainment. And we kind of ignored the audience because they were leaning forward like, I don't want to be here. And then a minute later, they're like, what is this? And then they were bored. And then we did a show. And I paid the bumbling white guy who couldn't do anything, and Emmanuel was the guy who could do everything. And it was great. For 30 weeks, 5, 6-week sessions, we worked with these young kids who were locked up. And it was fantastic. At the end of their 6-week session, they'd put on a performance for the judge and for the parole officer. And it was great because suddenly status became who could walk on their hands the longer, who could juggle more objects instead of who's done more time or who's been shot. So we were flipping the status around. So this is Nancy. Nancy was particularly frustrated because she learned to walk and then got polio and lost the ability to walk. And this is our ADA Plus studio in Ludlow, Kentucky. And we're doing a circus class for folks in wheelchairs because they're sick and tired of playing bingo, okay? Like that's the activity that they've been doing. So Nancy learns to spin a plate and she is on fire. Look who's sitting next to Nancy. That's her caregiver. That's who helps Nancy get dressed and who drives Nancy to circus class. But can she spin the plate? And that's the clown. That's the subversion of authority. So Nancy started talking with some friends, and 8 people turned into 18 people in our class. But it was more than Emmanuel I can handle. So we hired 3 young kids who fresh out of Hillcrest, the detention center. And Catholic Charities said, whoa, hold on. You can't have those people working with our clients. And again, being a clown, I get to push it a little bit. I said, well, hey, should we check maybe in Paul's letter to the Corinthians or the Ephesians, or we can find somewhere where Jesus was mixing up with those people, right? And they weren't too happy with that. I don't think they referred to the big book. They said, no, if they're sex offenders, our insurance won't cover it. And I said, fine, give me a week. I'll talk to the judge. We'll black out what they're in for. So they were in for felonious assault, and they were in for stealing cars. And they learned to take the bus from Cincinnati, transfer, take the number 3 bus to Ludlow, Kentucky. And these young men worked with us teaching circus skills to folks in wheelchairs. It was pretty fantastic. So we kind of proved it. But if you really want proof, again, this slide's kind of small, but check it out. In Israel, clowns are helping people get pregnant. Yeah. So this clown, who's also a doctor, had this idea that if they inserted some comedy immediately following the IVF treatment, it might move the needle a little bit. Now, in Israel, the country pays for IVF, so they were looking for a way to save some money anyway. So this clown, he had this idea, and he basically comes in with a turkey baster. Oh, he's also a doctor, by the way. But basically hits the guy like, why can't you get this done? Hitting him with the turkey baster. And he took a 20.2% success rate to 36.4. Nearly doubled it. And it's the power of the clown. You can look it up. You can Google it. Are we doing that in the United States? I don't know. Not right now. Okay? But what is happening in the United States is this book. It's pretty exciting. This book, after working with the kids at the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky for 6 years, these kids are wards of the state, and they're pathologized. They're diagnosed with PTSD, reactive expressive disorder, oppositional defiance disorder, major depressive episodes. And that's all outlined in this book, but this is the first book published in the United States to include circus as a modality of treatment. And we work with these young men and give them something productive to do because, like me, they're troublemakers. They're acting out to get attention. And we teach them to juggle. And then when they go to their new school, they're the cool new kid who can juggle. They're not setting a trash can on fire. Instead of hitting a teacher, instead of hitting a fellow student, they're walking on their hands down the hallway, and they're the new cool kid. And because they're the cool kid, they're keeping their placement in the foster care system. And it's exciting to try and get a little bit of traction. Now, this book also got us some work with the Department of Defense. We work with kids on Army bases because people don't know what to do with these troublemakers. So these frustrated folks, I say, let's send them to the circus. For 5 days a week, we teach people at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. So stuck in a waiting room for hours and hours and hours. What do you got? You can play with your iPad. You can watch, the Disney Channel. Or would you really like to learn how to juggle? So kids on dialysis, they know how to spin plates. Kids stuck in the orthopedics waiting room, they juggle. They take home a balancing feather. Every Friday, we work with kids at the inpatient psych unit. And it's exciting because they're like, circus, what's that? And I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. And we say, excellent. Every circus needs an audience. Just sit there and relax. And they don't know how to process that one, okay? So we're winning some awards, which is kind of neat, okay? This is us getting the highest orthopedic patient experience, the HOPE Award. But what's neat is, though, we're actually earning a line item on the budget. The hospital's paying for us because there's a thing called the HCAP score, Hospital Care of Assessment of Health Providers and Systems. Quite an acronym, but this third-party group sets reimbursement rates for Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Medicare, Medicaid, da-da-da-da-da. So the more they hire us, the more money the hospital's making. It's pretty interesting. So here's my hypothesis. From a dollars and cents point of view, these are 5 young men in jail. This is $300,000 that as taxpayers we're spending. Why not have those young people learn some skills, have a viable job, and work with us in the circus? For the $60,000 it takes to lock these kids up, for 10% of that $6,000, we could train them to work with us in the circus. Here's a school right down the street. This is Dawn Community High School. It's a credit recovery school. Kids have been in and out of jail, homeless, kicked out of a lot of other schools, kind of a last chance. And we are their gym class. Okay? So it's neat because these young people are learning some circus skills. And the artist you see there, she's Rosa. She is a fantastic performer. She's from Germany, which is rather exotic for these folks in town. And I'm really loud, and she speaks softly and has a German accent. So these kids, they really listen to her. So what we've been working on now, we've been there for 7 months. We've hired 2 young men and 2 young women, and they work with us at Cincinnati Hebrew Day School. So we have German Peace Corps volunteers, and we have young African-American students at a high school teaching circus skills to a private Jewish day school. And that is a little circus potpourri that just smells good, doesn't it? I mean, it's good. But from a credibility point of view, when we have a young man who learned circus skills in detention, shows up at dawn with the Circus Mojo shirt on, the kids listen to him. They don't listen to a 40-year-old white guy, okay? They listen to him. And it's neat because this young man, we'll call him Fred. It's not his name, all right? But when the All-Star Game was in town this past year, we hired performers from France, from Japan, from Malaysia, from Germany, and we also hired a young man who got great skills right here in Cincinnati, and he was performing right on Fountain Square, earning a paycheck, which is neat. Because jobs, that's how we're going to argue with these people, okay? Because when you walk all over school, it says, no gambling, no weapons, no drugs, tuck your shirt in, all right? And we would much rather people sell circus than sell all that stuff, right? But we know that this is possible. Okay, there's a student, a little frustrated. 10 is the goal. We want to get to 10 throws and catches. All right? And she's like, oh, I just can't do it. So we cut it down. We're like, all right, I'll be the right hand, you can be the left hand. Oh, I can't do it. And then we just stop for a second and explain this idea that the first jugglers on earth were women in Africa. The 21st century, 21 BCE, like a long, long time ago, there's this guy named Becket III, and in his tomb in Egypt, there are women jugglers. When you plant that little bit of a seed to deal with someone who's frustrated, all of a sudden, they get 10 throws and 10 catches and is on fire. Okay? All right? So, in Finland, kind of neat. I'll be going to Finland next week. They got a €4 million grant to study circus from the cradle to the grave. Okay? And we've been using this Finnish survey, and I kind of trick people into filling it out. I mean, they fill it out gratefully, but what they say is, this was a part of a €4 million grant, and it was developed in Finland. Will you please fill this out? Oh, Finland? Yeah, I'd like to go to Finland. And they fill it out. So we're getting doctors to fill it out. We're getting nurses to fill it out. We're getting students. We're getting parents. And what's neat is we're starting to show some metrics from the psychosocial effects of circus. Okay? So the next time you hear someone say, I'm afraid of clowns, you should be. Okay? Because we're a powerful lot. All right? And if we can try and take people back to just when people are learning how to walk. So next time there's an argument about incarceration, let's talk about job creation. Next time someone says, oh, that person can't do that, they're mentally or physically disabled. No, hold on. What can you do? If you got a stroke and you can only move that right arm, we're going to teach you 15 tricks with that right arm. And then when you show up at family reunion, man, Uncle Joe, he's got some stuff going on. Okay? Or if you're playing dodgeball in Finland, or if you're in Israel and you want to start a family, just think about the power of the clown. And when you're scared, and when people are frustrated, try and take it back to that time when you're rolling over, when you're sitting up, when you're just learning how to walk, and everybody around you is inspiring, and everybody around you wants you to succeed. Thank you for this opportunity.